Hi everyone. Okay, so this is going to be my third attempt at making a gel print using a mylar template. So essentially it's a reduction print, which I've had a crack at a few times now. Some really didn't turn out. So I've kind of so far just got two sort of fairly decent ones. So this being my first one from the first template that I used, which I was really over the moon with that it worked, and you know, all of the elements came out on it. But I sort of, you know, as I was doing more of them and trying different techniques, I realised that I needed to kind of try and pare the design down a little bit, which I did, and I was able to do one like this, which I'm far happier with. Let me just put those side by side. So both are quite, you know, they're successful in their own right, but I just prefer the sort of more simple aspects of this one as opposed to this one. I think this one is a little bit, perhaps a little bit too busy and not as considered as perhaps this one. I mean, it's always a little bit of a gamble with print. The results of print aren't that predictable, really. You know, with painting or drawing, every mark you make on the paper or the canvas is a deliberate mark, and you kind of can judge how it's going to come out straight away. With print, you know, it's a different ball game altogether. You don't really know until the final kind of reveal. So, but you know, that's the beauty of it, really. There's this kind of sense of trepidation and a bit of excitement brought into it. So I'm going to continue. I've had another look at my template. I'm going to go again with this style. So again, using the same paring back from the first one. Let me just pop those off to the side. What I've done is I've just had, this is my template that's already been cut and is now waiting. It's now stuck down onto the gel plate waiting to be printed. But last night I was just having a little play around in Photoshop. I scanned this one in, and then I was just playing around with the different colourways and possibilities of how I could take this forward. So I'm going to have a go at doing this one. I'm going to try and do a gel print that looks as close to that as possible. So I've gone a little bit more formulaic on this one. I've actually made some notes to help me. What I've decided to do is to, let me just zoom out a little bit, is to actually mix some paints down on a palette. This is just a stay wet palette, a makeshift stay wet palette that I've made out of, it's just a plastic lid with some wet paper towel and some greaseproof paper over the top. And I've got myself some of these Arteza acrylic colours, which are, you know, the viscosity is, it's not the best, but I think, you know, that for the purposes of this, it's fine actually. But you know, I've got several different, you know, different colours, and they're all really nice colours. But if I want to achieve some of the colours on this design, I'm going to have to mix them, I think. And also as well, what I'd love to be able to achieve is these kind of subtle background colours, these like flashes of turquoise, blue, and that are kind of accidental in the instant, you know, in a genuine pulled print, you know, like with this one, you know, all of these kind of things are happy accidents, really, you know, all that painterly kind of feel that you get in an authentic print are kind of accidental, really. They're not deliberate. So I'm going to attempt to deliberately do something that looks more accidental, if that makes sense. But let's just see how I get on. I think the best thing is not to be too prescriptive and just go for it and enjoy it. Looking at different methods, I really struggled with the last one using a roller. I think the roller doesn't allow as much control, so I'm going to try this time to use, I've cut up some bits of kitchen scourer sponge, and I thought if I can, you know, mix up various colours, I can just kind of dab them on, you know, in the various areas, so it doesn't become so flooded with colour, because sometimes it's easy to miss some of these smaller pieces of mylar and leave them kind of on the plate, which I think did happen with the last one. I had to pick it off at the end, but I mean it's fine and everything, doesn't kind of ruin the print as such, but it's just better from the point of view of being able to lift out the various parts of it easily. Okay, right, I best stop waffling and kind of just get on with it, I think. So I'm going to start with the eyes, and I'm just looking at my notes here. I'm just going to pull out, let's zoom in a little bit, you don't need to see my notes. The iris, do I want the pupils first? Now I'm going to do the irises first, take those out. Not the irises, the pupils first. Okay. What else I wanted? Because these are going to be the darker areas. So, if I've cut this right, the other thing is I did cut this on the gel itself, because you can actually do that. It's kind of found out by accident that the gel plate is kind of self-healing. So, you know, if you cut into it slightly, it doesn't, you know, the cut sort of heals itself, which is quite handy. I'm just going to lift that out. I just need to concentrate, really. It's quite difficult to kind of explain what I'm doing and sort of make sure I don't go wrong. So I think under mouth. Right, I'm gonna go with that, I think. Okay, so I want, let's Let's find the Van Dyke brown. Here somewhere. Cocoa brown. It's the darkest colour in this, so it's quite dark, which is good. Just going to pop a little bit out on the palette there. The reason I'm using a Stay Wet palette as well is because it occurred to me that, you know, it's sometimes hard to control how much comes out of these pots, and it's really easy to just lose a lot of colour. Yesterday I used far more paint than I really wanted to, so I thought if it's down here on this Stay Wet palette, you know, the paint itself doesn't dry out as I'm working, and then at the end I can literally use a palette knife and just scoop them back up and get it back in the pot. So there is a kind of method to my madness there. So I'm just going to dab that down. I haven't tried this, this is pure experiment, so I'm just hoping this is gonna work. A little bit of that off over there, and then I just want a little bit under the mouth there. And the other good thing about this is I can put the sponge with each colour I'm using, so I can keep them separate, if that makes sense. So let's have a little peek at what that's going to look like. Okay. Yeah. That looks about right. Now the next part to lift out. Now I'm going to do this while the paint's still wet, because I think it's better to do it that way. Is I'm going to do the iris part of it. So I'm going to do that next. Pop those over there. Oops, it's a little bit fiddly. Put that over there. Right. Now I'm going to use the hairdryer just to dry that off, I think. Yeah. Right, so just thinking about it, before I do the eye colour, what I'm going to do is just get a tiny speck of white acrylic. I'm just going to dab it at the side of the pupil. I might do a little one there as well, just to get a bit of expression into those eyes. You know, we do have sort of little pools of reflective light because our eyes are essentially moist, so you do get that. So I'm just going to pop that over here. just going to give that a little bit of a dry off. And then the same sort of idea, before I put down the colour, the main eye colour, I'm just going to put a few kind of bands of this turquoise on first, just to kind of add a bit of interest into the eye area. It doesn't have to be, you know, really neat and perfect or anything. It's just, and again, that has to be dry before I can print down the other colour. Might be better if I bring that closer. Beauty as well with these acrylics is they're sort of thin enough to dry really quickly. I've got this lovely dark teal colour that I'm going to use for the main eye colour, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the smaller bits of sponge I've got here. I only want a tiny bit, so probably about just a dot really. I don't need too much of that. So I've just got a little bit there, and I'm just going to dab that colour over. And over. Okay, let's have a little look. Right, so hopefully you can, let's zoom that in, so you get a sense of where I'm going with it. So you've got the highlights in the eyes and the bands of colour and the background colour. Okay, so I'm quite pleased with that. Let's pop that back down. Right, what's next? So I'm going to go for the whites of the eyes. I've got a feeling I'm going to be just doing little minor cuts all the time. See, as the paint goes on, it gets harder to actually see the little slivers of mylar. Right, so top of the brow bones, so here. Over here. And I want that sort of heart shape at the top there. Now, this is what I meant to do actually, which I forgot to do, so I'm going to do it now. I'm just going to draw that shape, and I'm going to cut this out. So apologies, this is a bit of an oversight, but it was only when I was doing my notes earlier that I realised that I hadn't done this bit. But this bridge of the nose area, I want to be lighter as well. So all these areas are going to print light. Where else? I think, oh, this kind of area down here on the chin. I'm thinking perhaps not the lip area, that should be a very pale pink, I think, rather than, you know, white might be a bit too stark. In fact, I don't want like a pure white either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a little bit of white, and I'm going to put a little bit of flesh tone, sort of Caucasian flesh tone there. Now, I think what I need to do is just see if I can mix up a kind of off-white, you know, sort of nearly white, but not too glaring. I think that's about right, I think. I mean, you can actually apply the acrylic with a palette knife if you're really skilled and confident that you can do that. My attempts weren't that successful, to be fair, so I'm going to stick with these sponge pieces. Right, I'm just going to dry off again. That's just so, you know, the colours don't get all mixed up. So I'm going to dab down. I'm going to start up here. Just dab that in. And down on the nose. And then over into the whites of the eyes. Okay. Let's see. Let's have a little look at that. You can't quite see too well, I don't think, on the camera, but I can see that's pretty good. That's how I envisaged it. Although what I am going to do is up on this brow area, rather than make it too stark white, I'm going to add a bit more of this Caucasian flesh tone to there, just to add a little bit of difference. I think I might do that at the top of the nose as well. Just add it in. Okay. Oh, and yes, just forgetting the chin area as well. Right, let's have a look. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do these areas here. So I'm going to go, the next colours I'm going for, oops, so it's so easy to miss areas. Right, there we go. So it's a godsend really to be able to cut directly onto the mylar like that. Lift out that central part of the mouth, and then there's these parts of the face. Now, is it that outer area? I think it is. It's this area, is it? Yeah. I'm just choosing all the areas that I want to be the same colour, if that makes sense. And there's a little bit of mylar there that needs to come out. Pop that over there. I'm going to scrape a little bit of that white away, just to work in this pink. See, I'm starting to get more confident about how I can handle these colours, and that only really comes with doing it really. So I'm gonna, for the pink, I'm going to put down some raspberry red. I think I'll pop it down here, only a tiny bit. And I'm going to put more white up where the white was. Try and keep them together. And I'm just going to take a tiny peppercorn of that. Because, you know, if you bring in any colour to white, you want the tiniest speck. And just, you know, strengthen up as you go, because if you put too much in first off, that, you know, you're going to be mixing far more paint than you wanted to. And I'm trying to get, for want of a better way of describing it, like a bubblegum pink for this. Trying to see slightly more, I think. Okay, that looks okay. I want to try and get that off there. Let's see, this is me being ultra frugal now with this paint. I'm just going to dab down. Right, missing out something. I don't think I dried that off. Did I? No, I didn't. So let's do that now. Okay. So I'm just going to dab down. It's pink. Just want it. Down these two sides of the face. Take that all the way around. The good thing about using these sponges as well is you can get the right amount of paint on without losing, you know, all the lines of your design, if that makes sense. So I can still see where I need, you know, where I need to lift out areas. Whereas when this starts getting flooded with paint, it gets harder and harder to see where you're going, and that can be a bit frustrating. Okay, so that's that bit. Let's have a look. This gel plate is on a sheet of Perspex, which is really handy for being able to look to try and get an idea of what your final print is going to be like. And I'm liking that because the pinks in the eyes mixing with that white is really good. So, right, so where are we up to? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, perhaps I should have done this a bit earlier, but I'm going to lift out these bits. In the eye sockets and the area under the nose. And I think I had does that go all the way down there? It does. Yeah. So next I'm going to do like a kind of cocoa brown, like a sort of, it's quite a dark brown. It's not as dark as the Van Dyke brown that I was using, but it's slightly lighter, just to kind of punch up the image a little bit, get a bit of definition in there. So I'm going to dry off first. So there we go. Before I do that though, similarly to how I did the eyes, the nostrils are darker. So I'm going to actually try and get a bit clever with the way I do this around the nose area. So I'm just going to, first of all, just do two little dabs where the nostrils are. And then what I want to do is in this part of the design, I don't know if you can see, I want to try and get that effect, that sort of painterly, sort of half there, half not there kind of, with the darker paint. So I wonder how I can do that. I can either no, it's not going to do it with that. me just get a little bit of this paint. I think what I might do is dab some in, and then I'm not sure that's going to work in the way that I wanted it to. See, this is the thing, you know, with printmaking, it's not always easy to get deliberate effect, you know. The beauty of it is it's sort of accidental. Unless you're a master printmaker, of course, which clearly I'm not. Yeah, that's already covered, so it's only at that open area, so don't have to worry about that. That's fine. That's fine. I'll just dab a bit more down there. Right. Okay. So I'm going to dry that off. I'm going to get the cocoa brown, pop it up here next to the Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to get another piece of sponge and just lift a little bit out. A little bit there on the sponge. I just want to dab that into that eye socket area. Want it to be under the nose, but I don't want it to be too strong because I want some turquoise areas to come through when I do the last part to this. What I do is I'm just going to skim over areas of this with bit of a cotton bud. Top there as well. So I do kind of, you know, I've got this idea of what I want to achieve with this, but it might not be 100% apparent yet. But it's so nice to be able to just experiment, really, you know. You know, the only reason that you kind of learn anything new is through experimentation. Sort of trying out all different ways of doing the same thing, kind of gives you the inspiration and the impetus to try other things and get new techniques, and suddenly something comes together and it works, and you know, and it's great. So I think, you know, now you can hopefully start to see, get a bit more sense of where this is going. You know, the face, the facial structures are starting to reveal themselves with each kind of colour application. Which is very satisfying. And what I'm going to do here is just lift out. There's an area down here. That's that bit I want. Lift that bit up. And I want some of this darker Van Dyke brown to go in there. Just because I think it'll look good. Right, let's have a look. Let's have another little look. Ah, yeah. Yeah, that's starting to really come on now. Okay. So, right, before I dry that off, I think I'm going to look at this next part. I've just noticed something. I'm going to take that and split it there. And lift out so satisfying when it just pings out like that all in one go. It's really quite satisfying. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and dry that off. So these open areas here, I'm going to have to sort of get a little bit clever with these colours now, because there's two very subtle differences in these kind of deeper flesh tones. Around the eye, it's just a few shades darker than this area on the cheek and around the mouth area. So I'm going to mix together and mix up those colours, I think, from what I've got. Now I've got a yellow ochre. Let's expand that a little bit more. A bit of ochre. I want to kind of put some terracotta. It's a bit more warm. Is it dried up at the top? Excuse me a minute. Okay, excuse faulty noise. Yeah, let's see how I get on with that. I suspect I'm going to have to get a bit of white involved. Maybe not. Let's see how I go. I'm going to go for that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a bit of this Caucasian flesh in. There we go. I think that is very much like it. Let me just check. Maybe not. Let's go do the darker stuff again. It's slightly warmer, but it's not too warm. Maybe a dab of this raspberry. Just give it the warmth it needs. Yeah, I think that's warm. That's closer to it. I mean, I'm not going to get it exact anyway. I'm going by printer colours actually, if I'm thinking about it. So that's as near as damn it, I think. Let's do another bit. Let's get quite a big bit this time because it's got a bigger area to go on. So I'm just going to do this top part and around the nose, the side of the nose. It sort of breaks a little bit there. It comes down. So that area quite strong, and then round here. Take it out of that bit. And now I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit for the bottom part of the face. That's got more of a redder tone to it. I use a different one, probably use a different one, and then dab that. So you can just see a slight difference. Okay. Yeah. That's coming on. Right, next part, I think I'm going to do this side. Now that is the very lighter part, it's that kind of really nice, kind of lightish beige. Come on. that should go. Yeah, this one's not coming out of height. Let's just get that off there. It goes all the way around there. Okay, so this again is a bit lighter. We've got all these sort of light beige areas. So let's see what I can manage to knock up out of here. I want to get it quite sort of it's almost like a buttermilk. Okay. Oops. Right. Let's get this done. There we go. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, that's coming on, I think. Ah, no, I think I've missed a bit of the mylar here. Let me just... lift that bit out. Just wondering if I can make that a different, rather than the let's see. Let's get a bit of that in there. Right. Yeah, that's all good. Right, so I'm going to dry that off now. Or just wondering if I should lift out the lightest areas before I dry this off. I probably should, because it's easier to lift it out when it's wet. Let's do that. Just grab hold and voila, that bit. There, and either side of the mouth. Oops, is that bit coming up as well? I don't know actually. Right, decision time. think I'm going to split that there and do that under lip a different colour and split that there, so bear with. Sorry that my head's in the way as well. Right. Come on. See, it's harder when the paint dries to actually get a purchase on the little bits of mylar. Right, okay. I want this top bit off as well, don't I? Let's get all that off. That should come out in one easy bit. That's it. Yeah, happy with that. So let's go. Right, so these open areas, the next open areas are going to be lighter again. So it's going to be almost white, but more, you know, like more pink, I think. Pink, I think. So I'm just going to use what I've got down there on the palette. Well, I know that I'm going to have to get some more paint down, so let's get the white. Not a massive amount, just a little bit. And I've already got some of this. Let's just get a little tiny bit of that, don't want too much. Might be slightly different. If we disperse it around, it will blend quite nicely, I think. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to lift that bit out the side of the nose, because I meant to do something else with that. So I'm going to just avoid that bit. I think that's all of those areas dabbed in as well. Yeah, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Loving that. Might just get a little bit stronger in that cheek area. I've just noticed I've missed out this top bit of the brow. Let me just lift that out. I'm going to dry that off. And that bit out as well at the bottom. Right, now let me just fill in that bit at the top. I meant to do that before, so luckily I've got just enough paint mix there to fill that bit in. Right, so those areas with the little touches of turquoise around this nose area, I'm going to try and manufacture that. around here. So I'm going to do a little bit of, I'm going to attempt to be a little bit clever. And I do realise this isn't, you know, probably not in the spirit of true kind of printmaking. But I'm just trying to see if I can pull this off really. I'm going to take that bit of the mouth out as well. Right. Let's just dry that off. I'm going to get a bit of turquoise, beautiful colour, and a little bit of, I'm going to chop this down further to make it a little bit smaller, if I can find my scissors. Where are they? Oops. Right. Just kind of halved that size because I want this to be quite a delicate operation. Take a bit up here just in case there's any open parts. So I actually love when you know, in painting, you know, I often use this kind of turquoise colour to counterbalance some of the flesh tones. I think it works really nicely. I'll get some down on this as well. Okay, let's have a little turn over of that. Yeah, that's really nice actually. I like that. I do like that. And then let's see if I can get some to come through on that chin area. Into the eyes. I'm just trying to catch any areas that are, you know, the paint is a little bit thinner, so you can kind of see through it a bit. That's the idea. It should be very subtle. that is, I tell you what I am going to change. I've just noticed something. When I turn this over, I think this under the lip part is a little bit too strong. I think it should be more this mid-brown than the dark brown. So I'm just going to take that out, I think, with a bit of cotton bud and a bit of spit. And yeah, where is that? I think that just will work better, personally. Let me just see that. Yeah, it does. It just works better. It's not as, you know, it's not as jarring. And while I'm here, I might as well cover that area. See, I'm starting to get quite painterly with this now. Which is good. Right, so there's two little kind of pockets under the eyes that I wanted in a kind of deeper lilac colour, and I'm wondering if I should take it in that area under the lip as well. I think I will. Let me just try that off. Well, luckily I have actually got a lilac. Oh no, it's actually called lavender. So I'm going to just put a touch of that down. I'm going to get this tiny piece of sponge. Incidentally, I think the sponge works really well. I shall be using it again, I think. I'm just going to take that under there as well. Now, this top lip area is a bit unresolved. That's all right though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that out. Oops, I want that to be separate. Lift that out there. Right, so I've got this raspberry red. Put a little bit of that with it. A little bit of that terracotta with it, but just kind of softens it down a bit, doesn't make it as stark. If you can see that on the palette. Just in this bit here, I'm just going to dab that into the mouth area. want it to be slightly darker. Let's do that. Looks like she's got a big red moustache. Until you turn it over and it starts to make more sense. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay, so the next part to come out is the bottom lip area. I just want to dry that off first. Just get some starting to get a little bit more freehand with it now. Right, so for that part, for the lower lip area, I actually want it to be a softer, lighter pink. So again, I'm going to cut down, I want a smaller piece of the sponge. I'm going to take up a bit of that raspberry . Let's get that down. Right, so let's start taking out a few of these other smaller bits around the outsides, and then there's this. I can grab that part. Oops. Teal. Let's get some ultramarine. Should I get some over there? I probably should get some of this over there as well. Oh yes, Yeah, it's really starting to look a lot stronger now. Right. Let's now lift these bigger areas out. Okay, I'm going to go in with the hairdryer again before I carry on. Okay, so these larger areas at the sides I want to flood with this dark brown, this Van Dyke brown. And luckily I've got enough out there on the palette, so I'm going to just go for it. Press that down, so that's still a little bit of mylar to come off. I've still got an area at the bottom here as well to come off. I might actually need to put some more down if I can find it. That's the cocoa. Oh, there it is. Right, so the final bits to come out is that. There's a little shape at the top there. And that at the side. Okay, let me dry that off again. Right, just to get into these little shapes, I'm going to use some of this lilac. I'm going to deepen it down a little bit with some blue, so it's more of a purple. Just to go in there. I think I'll take it into that bit as well, there, possibly over here a little bit. And then I'm going to use this ultramarine blue just to dab in. I'm leaving parts of it open because the next part to this is actually the binding layer. So you put wet paint over the whole thing, and what it does is it grabs it, it grabs all of the existing paint down there, when you cover it with paper, and then that allows you to lift out the print. But all will be revealed. I have demonstrated, and there's plenty of other artists that have demonstrated it as well. So it's quite a sort of tried and tested thing. So there, well, hey, I'm loving that. I mean, that's not a million miles away, is it, from my Photoshop example. But as I say, you don't ever really get the full effect, really, until it's until you can literally pull the plate, pull the print off. So I'm going to just give that a blast. Okay, so for the binding layer, I'm actually going to use a different type of paint. I'm going to use the cerulean blue, this Sennelier Abstract Acrylic. So it's thicker than the Arteza ones, a bit more viscous, which hopefully will have the effect of grabbing the paint. And wherever there's little bits of open parts to this plate, you'll see little bits of cerulean blue come through, which again is quite a nice thing. So I'm not going to go mad with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll that over the whole of it. Let's get some more down there. Make sure I've got enough on there. Okay. Okay, and now all I do is put my paper over the top. Now I'm using 300 GM watercolour paper because it's the sort of heaviest paper I've got. I wouldn't use a very thin paper for this technique, because you're going to need to, when it's all dried off, you're going to need a little bit of brute force to pull the paper against the plate, which I'll demonstrate in the next bit. This needs to completely dry off though before I can do that. So I'm going to go and get a cup of tea and leave this for a few hours, and then fingers crossed when I come back to it later to pull it, it will have worked. I really hope it has, because I've just got a feeling it's going to be, if it does work, it might even be the best one. So that should be how it looks when it comes out, and I think that looks pretty good, you know. I'm really pleased with that, but anyway, all will be revealed later on. So I'm going to go and get a well-earned cup of tea because I'm gasping, and I'll be back later. Okay, so here we are for the big reveal. I think this is now dry enough. I'm going to just go for it, I think. I'm going to start up in this corner. Right. Let's have a look. Oh, trying to do it all in one go. Wow, okay. I never know what to say really when these come out. I'm always so amazed by the results of them, because they're always so different. Let me just zoom that down. Let's pop that over to the side. So, you know, if you can see there, it's really kind of amazing. And I like the fact that, you know, the watercolour paper that I'm using, although it's a sort of fairly smooth one, I think, you know, the surface of it creates this sort of flecking in the paint where the paint's come off a little bit, and you've got a little bit of cracking in the paint, so it's like a sort of crackle glaze style look and feel to it. So I actually really love that, you know. I mean, I suppose if you are a real printmaker, that might be something you wouldn't go for yourself, but I personally, as a painter, love that effect. I think it's really lovely. Yeah, I'm very pleased. Really pleased with that. And I think, you know, using the little bits of sponge, scourer sponge to apply the paint does really work. I think if I was going to do it again, although I do quite like that effect, I think I'd go a little bit stronger in areas to sort of build up the layers a little bit on there. But other than that, I'm really loving it. I'm so pleased with that. Right, so there we have it. My third successful gel print made from using a Mylar template. Brilliant. Okay, thanks for watching.